Lucas Martinez, a simple car mechanic from Miami, lost everything: his wife, son, and home when Mia left him for a richer life. But he had a trump card up his sleeve, a mystery that could destroy its perfect facade. In court, one document turned everything around, and when the judge announced the decision, the hall froze in shocking silence. Lucas Martinez slammed the hood of a rusty Chevy Impala, the clang echoing through a small garage on the edge of Miami. Sweat dripped from his brow as he wiped his hands on a rag, the midday sun relentless even in October. At 45, he'd built a life from wrenches and grit. His auto shop, a beat-up pickup truck, and his family, his wife Mia, and their 16-year-old son Enrique, whom he'd raised since the boy was 5. Lucas had taught Enrique how to swap spark plugs, throw a fastball, and face the world with a steady gaze. They were a team, rebuilding a '67 Mustang in their spare time, a project that filled their weekends with purpose. But today, something felt off. Mia had been distant for weeks, her replies short, her eyes avoiding his. He locked the garage and drove home, the radio silent to match his uneasy mood. Pulling into the driveway of their modest Coconut Grove bungalow, he noticed Mia's car parked crookedly, like she'd left in a hurry and returned just as fast. Inside, the house was too quiet. No hum of the TV, no clatter of dishes. Lucas found Mia in their bedroom, folding clothes into cardboard boxes with mechanical precision. Her hands moved fast, packing sweaters and jeans, not pausing as he stood in the doorway. "I'm leaving," Mia said, her voice flat, eyes fixed on the box. "I've met someone else." Lucas froze, his keys still in hand. The words hit like a misfired engine, sudden and jarring. "What do you mean, someone else?" His voice stayed calm, but his pulse hammered. Mia didn't look up. "His name's Carlos. He's different. I'm moving in with him tonight." Enrique stood in the hallway, his lanky frame filling the doorframe. At 16, he was taller than Lucas, his dark hair falling into his eyes. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching his mother pack without a word. Lucas waited for him to speak, to protest, to ask why, but Enrique's face was blank, like he'd already checked out of the scene. "Enrique," Lucas said, stepping toward him. "You okay?" Enrique shrugged, his jaw tight. "Whatever. She's made up her mind." Mia taped the box shut, the sound sharp in the silence. "Enrique's coming with me. Carlos has a place in Coral Gables. It's better for him." Lucas's stomach twisted. "Better? Mia, we're a family. You don't just walk out and take our son." He turned to Enrique. "You want to stay here, don't you?" Enrique looked at the floor, scuffing his sneaker against the wood. "I'm going with her," he muttered. "It's fine." The words cut deeper than Mia's announcement. Lucas had raised this boy, bandaged his scraped knees, sat through every little league game, and spent hours under the Mustang's hood teaching him how to torque a bolt just right. Now Enrique stood there, choosing a stranger's house over the home they'd built together. Mia grabbed a box and headed for the door. "We'll talk later, Lucas. I need space." She brushed past him, her perfume lingering like a taunt. Enrique followed, carrying a duffel bag, his eyes still avoiding Lucas's. Lucas stood rooted, watching them load the car. The trunk slammed shut, and Mia's sedan peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching on the asphalt. The house felt hollow, the ticking of the kitchen clock the only sound left. Lucas sank into a chair, staring at the adoption papers he'd pulled from a drawer, signed when Enrique was 8, making him Lucas's son in every way that mattered. The ink was faded, but the promise wasn't. He'd been there for every milestone, every late-night talk, every triumph. How could Enrique walk away so easily? Days blurred into weeks. Lucas kept the garage running, fixing cars for neighbors who whispered about Mia's new life in Coral Gables with Carlos, a slick marketing exec with a BMW and a waterfront condo. Enrique's text stopped. No calls about school, no questions about the Mustang's carburetor, nothing. Lucas still bought Enrique's favorite cereal, leaving it on the counter like a silent prayer. The Mustang sat untouched in the garage, its half-finished engine a reminder of better days. One night, Lucas's phone buzzed. A text from Enrique, trucks acting up, transmissions slipping. No greeting, no explanation, just 4 words that felt like a lifeline. Lucas grabbed his toolbox and drove to Enrique's new place, a sleek condo complex that screamed money. Enrique waited in the parking lot, leaning against his beat-up Ford, the one they'd planned to fix together. Lucas pulled up, killed the engine, and stepped out. "Let's take a look," Lucas said, popping the hood. They worked for 3 hours under the streetlights, passing wrenches in silence. Enrique's hands moved with the confidence Lucas had taught him, but his face stayed guarded. Lucas tightened a bolt and tried to bridge the gap. "Missed working with you, son." Enrique's hands paused on a socket wrench, his shoulders stiffening at the word son. He didn't respond, just handed Lucas the next tool. When they finished, the truck purred smoothly. Enrique wiped his hands on a rag. "Thanks. Gotta go. Mia's got dinner ready." Lucas nodded, swallowing the ache in his chest. "Anytime you need me, I'm here." Enrique climbed into the truck and drove off, leaving Lucas standing alone in the empty lot. The night air was thick with humidity, but the real weight was the distance growing between him and the boy he'd raised. Back home, Lucas sat in the dark, the adoption papers spread out on the table. He traced the signatures, his and Mia's, from a day when they'd all stood together in a courthouse, Enrique beaming in his too big Little League jersey. That memory felt like a lifetime ago. Something was shifting, though. Mia's avoidance, Enrique's silence. It didn't add up. Lucas's gut told him there was more to this than a new boyfriend. He didn't know it yet, but the truth was about to crash into his life like a runaway car, and he had one card left to play that could change everything. Lucas Martinez tightened a lug nut on a customer's Jeep, the rhythmic clank of his wrench steadying his nerves. 3 weeks had passed since he'd fixed Enrique's truck, but the boy's silence had returned, a wall Lucas couldn't break through. The Miami sun blazed outside his garage, but the real heat came from the rumors swirling through the neighborhood. Mia was flaunting her new life with Carlos, hosting parties at his Coral Gables condo, while Enrique drifted further away. Lucas kept working, hoping routine would dull the ache, but every quiet evening in his empty house sharpened it. His phone buzzed as he slid out from under the Jeep. A call from an unknown number. Lucas answered, expecting a customer. Instead, a rough voice rasped through the line. "Lucas Martinez? This is Raul Garcia, Enrique's real dad." Lucas's grip on the phone tightened, grease smearing the screen. Raul, the deadbeat who'd vanished when Enrique was 5, leaving Mia to scrape by until Lucas stepped in. "You got no claim to that boy," Lucas said, voice low. "You walked out 9 years ago." Raul's laugh was sharp, like broken glass. "Blood's thicker than adoption papers, mechanic. I'm back, cleaned up, and I want my son. My lawyer says your adoption's shaky. Never got my signature." Lucas's stomach churned. He trusted Mia to handle the legal side of Enrique's adoption. She'd sworn it was airtight. "You're bluffing," he said, but doubt crept in. Raul hung up, leaving Lucas staring at the phone, the garage suddenly too quiet. He drove to Mia's old apartment, now empty, then to Carlos's condo, a glass and steel tower that screamed wealth. Mia answered the door, her posture stiff, a glass of wine in hand. "What do you want, Lucas?" Raul called, he said, stepping inside despite her hesitation. "Says the adoption's invalid. You told me everything was legal." Mia set the glass down hard, liquid sloshing. "It was. The lawyer said abandonment was enough." Raul was gone, unreachable. Her voice wavered, betraying a crack in her confidence. "Abandonment's not a signature, Mia." Lucas leaned closer, searching her eyes. If Raul's got a case, Enrique could get caught in the middle. You know what that'd do to him. Mia turned away, busying herself with stacking dishes. "Raul's just stirring trouble. He's got no money, no stability. Ignore him." But Lucas couldn't. That night, he dug through old files, finding the adoption papers. The court seal was there, but Raul's signature was missing, just as he'd claimed. Mia had lied, or been lied to. Either way, the ground under Lucas's family was shifting. The next morning, his phone rang again. Enrique's voice was tight, urgent. "Can we meet? Something's weird." Lucas suggested their old diner, a greasy spoon near the beach where they used to split pancakes. He arrived first, sliding into their usual booth. Enrique walked in, his backpack slung low, eyes scanning the room like he expected trouble. "What happened?" Lucas asked, pushing a coffee toward him. Enrique sat, stirring the coffee without drinking. "Some guy showed up at Carlos's place last night. Said he's my biological father. Kept talking about fishing trips like he could just step into my life." Mia freaked, locked herself in her room after he left. Lucas leaned forward. "What did he look like?" "Cleaned up. Nice suit, new haircut. Not the deadbeat Mom described." Enrique's fingers tightened around the spoon. He knew stuff about you and Mom splitting, about me living with her. How does he know that? Lucas's mind raced. Raul wasn't acting alone. Someone was feeding him information, someone with access to their lives. What did you tell him? He asked. I said he's 9 years too late. Told him I've got a dad. Enrique's voice hardened, but his eyes flickered with doubt. But he kept pushing, saying he's got rights. Is that true? Lucas hesitated, the missing signature burning in his mind. We'll figure it out, he said, keeping his tone steady. You're my son, legal or not. Nobody changes that. Enrique nodded, but tension lingered in his shoulders. There's more. Carlos was acting cagey after Raul left. Kept whispering to Mom, checking his phone. Something's off. Lucas paid for the coffee and walked Enrique to his truck. Stay sharp, he said. If Raul shows up again, call me. We handle this together. Enrique drove off, and Lucas sat in his pickup, piecing together the puzzle. Raul's sudden return, his polished look, his knowledge of their family drama. It pointed to a bigger game. That evening, Lucas was torquing a bolt when tires crunched on the gravel outside his garage. A police cruiser pulled up, lights off. Officer Diaz, a guy Lucas knew from high school, stepped out, his face grim. Got bad news, Lucas. Enrique's in trouble. Lucas dropped his wrench, the clatter sharp. What kind? Bar fight downtown. Some college kids mouthing off, and Enrique threw punches. Broke a table, got arrested. Bail set at $500. Lucas grabbed his keys. He okay. Scraped up, but fine. Thing is, Mia and Carlos aren't answering their phones. Kid's asking for you. Lucas's chest tightened. Enrique, the boy who'd barely spoken to him in weeks, was calling him dad in a jail cell. He followed Diaz to the station, posted bail, and waited in the dim hallway. Enrique emerged, knuckles bruised, shirt torn. When he saw Lucas, his tough facade cracked, relief flashing in his eyes. You came, Enrique said, voice low. Always will, Lucas replied, clapping his shoulder. They walked to the truck in silence, the Miami skyline glittering in the distance. In the passenger seat, Enrique stared out the window, his reflection tense. Those guys are talking trash about you, he said finally. Called you a wannabe dad, said I ditched you for Mom's new guy. I couldn't let it slide. Lucas gripped the wheel, pride and pain warring inside him. You don't need to fight my battles, son, but I'm glad you've got my back. Enrique glanced at him, a flicker of their old bond sparking. What's Raul want? He's not just here for me, is he? No, Lucas said, pulling into his driveway. Someone's pulling his strings. We need to find out who and why. Inside, Lucas made eggs and toast, the kitchen quiet except for the sizzle of the pan. Enrique ate slowly, then spoke. Mom's been weird lately. Secret calls, hushed arguments with Carlos. I think they're hiding something. Lucas set down his coffee. Then we start digging. Raul's got a lawyer, money, and information he shouldn't have. That's no coincidence. Enrique nodded, his jaw set. For the first time in months, they were a team again, facing an enemy neither fully understood. Lucas didn't know it yet, but the truth about Raul's return would lead to a showdown that could either save his family or shatter it for good. Lucas Martinez locked his toolbox and flipped the garage's closed sign, his mind racing. Enrique's arrest and Raul's sudden reappearance had lit a fuse, and Lucas felt the explosion coming. It was late afternoon in Miami, the air thick with humidity, but the real pressure was the ticking clock of Raul's custody threat. Lucas had spent the morning scouring old adoption records, finding gaps that confirmed his worst fears. Mia had fumbled the legal process, leaving a loophole Raul was now exploiting. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. Enrique was waiting at the diner, nursing a soda in their usual booth. His knuckles were still scabbed from the bar fight, but his eyes burned with purpose. Lucas slid in across from him, cutting straight to the point. What else do you know about Raul's visit? Enrique pushed his glass aside. He showed up with a fancy lawyer, talking about reclaiming his rights. Said he's got a steady job now, some construction gig, but it felt scripted, like he was reading lines. Lucas leaned forward. Who's feeding him those lines? Nobody comes back after 9 years with that kind of cash and confidence. Enrique hesitated, then pulled out his phone. Found this last night. He showed a text from an unknown number, sent to Mia's phone while Enrique was charging it. Raul's ready. Push the custody angle hard. Elle's out of the picture soon. The sender was blocked, but the message was clear. Someone was orchestrating this. Lucas's jaw tightened. Carlos, he said, the name bitter on his tongue. Mia's new boyfriend had the money and motive to bankroll Raul. We need proof he's involved. Can you get into Mia's phone again? Enrique nodded. She leaves it unlocked sometimes. I'll check tonight. Lucas drove Enrique back to Carlos's condo, the tension between them electric but focused. Be careful, Lucas said as Enrique climbed out. If Carlos catches you, don't push it. Enrique gave a sharp nod and disappeared into the building. That evening, Lucas sat at his kitchen table, spreading out every document he could find. Adoption papers, court filings, even Mia's divorce petition. A pattern emerged. Sloppy legal work from a decade ago, rushed through by a cheap lawyer Mia had hired. Lucas's adoption of Enrique was solid on paper, but Raul's missing signature was a landmine. He needed leverage, something to counter Raul's claim before it hit court. His phone buzzed with a text from Enrique. Got something. Meet me at the pier, 9 p.m. Lucas grabbed his keys and headed to the Coconut Grove Pier, where the ocean lapped against the docks under a starless sky. Enrique was already there, pacing, a folded piece of paper in his hand. Found this in Carlos's desk, Enrique said, handing it over. It was a printed email from Carlos to an unknown recipient, dated 2 weeks ago. Raul's on board. Fund his lawyer, and we'll get the kid out of Lucas's shadow. Mia's too sentimental to fight it. The email included a bank transfer confirmation, $10,000 to a law firm in downtown Miami. Lucas's blood boiled. Carlos wasn't just a bystander. He was the puppet master, using Raul to erase Lucas from Enrique's life. This is it, Lucas said, folding the paper carefully. But we need more, something to tie Carlos to Raul directly. Enrique's eyes narrowed. There's a meeting tomorrow. Raul's coming to the condo again. I overheard Carlos setting it up. Said they need to finalize the strategy before court. Lucas clapped Enrique's shoulder. You're with me on this, right? Always, Enrique said, his voice steady. You're my dad, not that guy. The next day, Lucas parked his truck a block from Carlos's condo, a recorder tucked in his pocket. Enrique texted him the signal. They're here. Lucas slipped into the complex through a side gate Enrique had left unlatched, moving quietly to the balcony below Carlos's unit. Voices drifted down, Raul's rough drawl and Carlos's polished tone. We've got the judge's ear, Carlos was saying. Push the abandonment angle. Lucas is just a glorified babysitter. Raul laughed. And after I get the kid, you're covering my relocation, right? I'm not sticking around Miami. Lucas hit record, capturing every word. Raul wasn't after Enrique. He was a hired gun, paid to disrupt Lucas's life. The conversation shifted to logistics, dates, payments, a court filing set for next week. Lucas's hands shook with rage, but he stayed still, letting the recorder do its work. As he crept back to his truck, Enrique texted, Mom's acting weird. Found her crying after Raul left. Lucas frowned. Mia might not be in on Carlos's full plan, but she'd enabled this mess. He needed to confront her, but first he called a lawyer friend, Maria Torres, who'd handled small claims for his garage. Can you look at a custody case? He asked, sending her the adoption papers and Carlos's email. Maria called back an hour later. The adoption's vulnerable without Raul's signature, but this email changes things. If you can prove Carlos is manipulating the case, it's fraud. Get me that recording and we'll bury them. Lucas spent the night prepping, his mind sharp despite the late hour. The next morning, he met Enrique at the diner again. You sure about this? Lucas asked, sliding the recorder across the table. If we play this in court, it'll blow up Mia's life too. Enrique stared at the recorder, then met Lucas's eyes. She chose Carlos. Let her deal with the fallout. I just want us back to normal. Lucas nodded, pride swelling despite the stakes. They drove to Maria's office, handing over the recording and email. Maria listened, her expression hardening. This is gold. Carlos and Raul are colluding to defraud the court. We'll file a motion to dismiss Raul's claim and expose Carlos's role. As they left Maria's office, Enrique paused. What if Mom fights back? She's still my mom, you know. Lucas gripped his shoulder. We're not fighting her. We're fighting the lies. Whatever happens, you and me, we're solid. Enrique nodded, a weight lifting from his posture. They headed to the garage, where the Mustang waited, its engine half assembled. For the first time in months, they worked side by side, passing tools without speaking, the rhythm of their teamwork a quiet promise. But Lucas knew the real battle was coming. Raul's custody hearing was days away, and Carlos's scheme was unraveling. The courtroom would decide their fate, and Lucas had one final card to play, a truth that would silence everyone. Lucas Martinez gripped the steering wheel, navigating Miami's morning traffic toward the downtown courthouse. The custody hearing loomed, a make-or-break moment for his claim to Enrique. His lawyer, Maria Torres, sat beside him, reviewing the damning evidence. Carlos's email plotting with Raul, the recording of their balcony meeting, and a notarized letter Lucas had found in an old box. Mia's handwritten confession from years ago, admitting she'd skipped Raul's signature during the adoption. Enrique rode in the back, silent but resolute, his backpack stuffed with school books and a change of clothes, ready to crash at Lucas's place if things went their way. Maria glanced at Lucas. This evidence is tight. Raul's case hinges on a lie, and Carlos's involvement could trigger a fraud investigation. Stay calm in there, no matter what they throw at us. Lucas nodded, parking near the courthouse steps. The building's marble facade loomed, its shadow heavy with the weight of what was at stake. Inside, the air was stale, buzzing with nervous energy from other families awaiting their turn. Lucas, Enrique, and Maria took seats in the back, watching Raul stride in with his lawyer, Sofia Vega, whose sharp suit and sharper voice screamed big money. Raul sat stiffly, his polished exterior betrayed by a twitch in his hands. Mia entered next, alone, her steps hesitant. She avoided Lucas's gaze, sitting 2 rows ahead with a lawyer who looked out of his depth. The bailiff called the case, and Judge Elena Ruiz took the bench, her expression unreadable. Vega launched into Raul's argument, her tone smooth and practiced. My client, Raul Garcia, was unjustly excluded from his son's life. The adoption by Lucas Martinez in 2011 lacked proper termination of Mr. Garcia's parental rights, rendering it legally void. Mr. Garcia is now stable, employed, and ready to provide a home for Enrique. Maria countered swiftly, presenting the adoption papers. Your Honor, Mr. Martinez has been Enrique's sole father figure for over a decade. Mr. Garcia abandoned his son at age 5, with no contact until now. His sudden interest coincides suspiciously with third-party interference. Vega smirked, producing a folder. We have documents showing Mr. Garcia was never served notice of the adoption, a clear procedural error. Lucas's pulse spiked, but Maria was ready. She handed the judge a USB drive. This recording, obtained legally, reveals Mr. Garcia conspiring with Carlos Rivera, Ms. Martinez's partner, to fabricate this custody claim for personal gain. The courtroom speakers crackled as Raul's voice played, admitting he'd leave Miami once paid, followed by Carlos promising funds to remove Lucas from the picture. Raul shifted in his seat, his composure cracking. Mia's head snapped toward the sound, her eyes wide with shock. Vega objected, claiming the recording was inadmissible, but Judge Ruiz silenced her with a raised hand. I'll hear it all. Continue, Ms. Torres. Maria held up the printed email. This correspondence shows Mr. Rivera funded Mr. Garcia's legal efforts, orchestrating a fraudulent challenge to Mr. Martinez's adoption. Furthermore, we have a sworn statement from Ms. Martinez, dated 2011, admitting she knowingly bypassed Mr. Garcia's signature due to his abandonment. Mia gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Lucas met her eyes for the first time, seeing panic, not guilt. She hadn't expected her old letter to resurface. Enrique leaned closer to Lucas, whispering, Did you know about that letter? Found it last week, Lucas murmured. Kept it quiet until now. Judge Ruiz called a recess, retreating to her chambers with the evidence. Lucas paced the hallway, Enrique at his side. What if she sides with Raul? Enrique asked, his voice low but steady. She won't, Lucas said, gripping his shoulder. The truth's on our side. But doubt not at him. If the adoption was overturned, Raul could drag Enrique into a life Lucas knew the boy didn't want. When court resumed, Judge Ruiz's tone was sharp. Ms. Vega, your client's case rests on a falsified narrative. The recording and email demonstrate clear collusion. More critically, Ms. Martinez's 2011 statement confirms Mr. Garcia's abandonment, legally sufficient for termination of his rights at the time. She turned to Mia's lawyer. Mr. Perez, your client's divorce filing omitted custody arrangements for Enrique, despite Mr. Martinez's legal status as his father. This raises questions about her intentions. Mia's lawyer stammered, unprepared. Vega tried to pivot, arguing Raul's recent stability, but Ruiz cut her off. Stability now does not erase 9 years of absence. Mr. Martinez approached the bench. Lucas stood, heart pounding, and walked forward. Ruiz lowered her voice. The adoption is valid. Mr. Garcia's rights were terminated in 2011, and this court finds no grounds to challenge it. You are Enrique's legal father. Her words carried to the room, and a hush fell. Mia's shoulders slumped. Raul's face twisted in defeat. Enrique stood, his eyes locked on Lucas, a mix of relief and defiance. Judge Ruiz continued, addressing the room. Furthermore, the evidence of collusion warrants a separate investigation into Mr. Rivera's actions. This hearing is concluded. She banged the gavel, and the room exhaled. Outside, Enrique grabbed Lucas's arm. It's over, right? You're my dad. No question. Lucas nodded, a weight lifting. No question. But as they walked to the truck, Mia approached, her voice shaky. Lucas, I didn't know Carlos was behind this. I thought Raul was just desperate. Lucas studied her, seeing the cracks in her new life. You let him play you, Mia. That's on you. He turned to Enrique. You coming home? Enrique didn't hesitate. Yeah, I'm done with Coral Gables. They drove off, leaving Mia standing alone, the courthouse fading in the rear view. Lucas knew the fight wasn't fully over. Carlos's role needed exposure, and Mia's choices would haunt her. But for now, he and Enrique were unbreakable, ready to face whatever came next. Lucas Martinez revved the '67 Mustang's engine, the roar filling his Coconut Grove garage. Enrique adjusted the carburetor beside him, their hands moving in sync, just like old times. 2 months had passed since the courtroom victory that cemented Lucas as Enrique's legal father, dismantling Raul's custody bid. The judge's ruling had exposed Carlos's scheme, and now Lucas and Enrique were rebuilding their bond, one bolt at a time. But the fallout from the hearing lingered, and Lucas knew the final pieces of this mess were still unsettled. Enrique wiped his hands on a rag and grinned. She's purring now. Ready for a test drive? Lucas nodded, tossing him the keys. They hit the coastal road, the Mustang's tires humming along A1A, Miami's skyline glinting under the morning sun. Enrique drove with confidence, a far cry from the uncertain kid who'd stood silent when Mia left. Lucas watched him, pride swelling, but a call from Maria Torres, their lawyer, broke the moment. Lucas, we've got developments, Maria said, her voice clipped. Carlos is under investigation for fraud. The DA's looking at his bank records. Those payments to Raul's lawyer weren't exactly subtle. But Mia's reached out. She wants to talk to Enrique. Lucas glanced at Enrique, who was focused on the road. What's her angle? She's claiming she was manipulated by Carlos, wants to make amends. I'd advise caution. She's still a wild card. Lucas hung up and relayed the news. Enrique's grip on the wheel tightened. She can't just waltz back in after picking Carlos over us. What'd she expect? You don't have to decide now, Lucas said. But hear her out. She's still your mom. Enrique pulled over near the beach, the waves crashing nearby. I'll think about it, but I'm not going back to that condo. I'm home with you. That evening, Lucas cooked tacos, the kitchen alive with the sizzle of beef and Enrique's chatter about school. A knock at the door interrupted them. Lucas opened it to find Mia, standing alone, clutching a folder. Her hands trembled as she stepped inside. I need to see Enrique. Please. Enrique emerged from the kitchen, his expression guarded. What do you want? Mia set the folder on the table. I was wrong. About everything. Carlos used me, fed Raul information to hurt Lucas. I didn't see it until the court hearing. She opened the folder, revealing bank statements and texts between Carlos and Raul, proof of their collusion. I'm giving this to your lawyer. Carlos is done. Lucas skimmed the documents, his jaw tight. Why now, Mia? You let this happen. Mia's voice cracked. I thought Carlos was my way out of life that felt small. I didn't realize he was playing me to control Enrique. I'm sorry for all of it. Enrique crossed his arms. Sorry doesn't fix months of silence. You chose a guy who tried to erase my dad. Mia nodded, "Tiar speeding." I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness today. Just a chance to earn it. Lucas watched Enrique, letting him take the lead. Enrique exhaled sharply. I'll think about it. But you've got work to do, and I'm staying here. Mia left, the folder still on the table. Lucas sent it to Maria, who confirmed it strengthened the case against Carlos. Days later, the DA charged Carlos with fraud and conspiracy, his polished life unraveling as his firm fired him. Raul, cut off from Carlos's funds, vanished again, leaving no trace. Enrique threw himself into senior year, his grades climbing as he applied to a technical college for automotive engineering. Lucas helped him prep for the entrance exam, their evenings filled with study sessions and garage projects. One night, as they polished the Mustang's hood, Enrique dropped a bombshell. I want to change my name back to Martinez. Not because of court papers, but because it's who I am. Lucas paused, a wrench in hand, his chest tight with emotion. You sure? Enrique nodded. You showed up every day, little league, late night talks, all of it. That's what makes you my dad. The name change hearing was swift, a formality compared to the custody battle. Judge Ruiz signed off, and Enrique Martinez walked out of the courthouse, his ID now matching his choice. Lucas stood beside him, the weight of years of loyalty finally rewarded. Weeks later, Enrique aced his driving test in the Mustang, the car they'd rebuilt together gleaming under the Florida sun. They celebrated at the diner, splitting a stack of pancakes like old times. Enrique spoke between bites. You think Mom will ever get it? Was she almost lost? Lucas sipped his coffee. That's her journey now. Ours is right here, building something stronger. Mia reached out sporadically, sending Enrique texts he answered cautiously. She'd moved out of Carlos's condo, renting a small place in Little Havana, and started therapy, claiming she wanted to rebuild trust. Enrique set boundaries, agreeing to occasional coffee, but nothing more. Lucas supported him, knowing family ties could heal but needed time. By spring, Lucas and Enrique opened a second garage bay, a side hustle to fund Enrique's college. The Mustang became their calling card, drawing customers who admire their work. At Enrique's graduation, Lucas sat in the front row, cheering as Enrique Martinez crossed the stage. The diploma was more than a degree. It was proof of a bond no one could break. As they drove home, Enrique turned to Lucas. You know what I learned from all this? Family's not about who's got the right papers. It's about who sticks around when things get messy. Lucas smiled, the road ahead clear. You got that right, son. They pulled into the garage, ready for the next project, the next chapter, together.